Bushfires have ravaged Australia for nearly 4 months now. We've all seen it on television. We know the cost to human life. We know the cost to land, 16 million acres of land, and an estimated 1 billion animals.
And the pictures have just been awful to watch, haven't they? Fires expected to rage on for several weeks still. Treating the wildlife remains a top priority, of course. Now, we've sent our vet, Dr Scott Miller, to Port Macquarie. That's near Sydney. He's been helping out at a Koala Hospital. Hello, Scott. So, obviously, night time with you now. How has it been for you witnessing the devastation and particularly when it comes to the wildlife there?
Well, of course, being an Australian and being a vet, it's been absolutely harrowing. I can only describe it as it's like an animal apocalypse. Everything you're reading and you're seeing, it's actually worse. Port Macquarie, where I am right now, and Rosie's saying hello to me right behind me, as you can see her. She's one of the lucky ones, but there's so many koalas in this particular area that have been killed. There's an area in New South Wales that's burnt that's the size of Wales. And so it's such a huge area, and about 75% of the functional habitat of koalas has been decimated. They think that about a third of the population of koalas have actually passed away. And the ones that left are in dire straits. They are hungry, they are dehydrated, a lot have smoke inhalation, and some of the burns that they are suffering with are absolutely horrific. So it really is a dreadful situation here, and this is an iconic animal, an animal that means a lot to a lot of people, but particularly to Australians.
We're looking at pictures here of a little koala which is injured there. Scott, just talk us through what makes these animals even more vulnerable, the fact that they're slow, the way they and how they react to the flames coming their way.
Yeah, well, koalas are arboreal creatures, which means that they live their lives in trees. And like many other indigenous animal species that can hop or run or slither or fly away from the flames, koalas in a fight or flight situation will actually just climb up a tree. And these type of fires are nothing that we've seen before. Eucalypt forests are known to be resistant to fires, but these fires are horrific. They're jumping from canopy to canopy and taking out koalas at every point. Koalas are normally quite resistant when it comes to fires, but in these particular cases where Australia has suffered the hottest and the driest year on record, Australia is literally a tinderbox and it's burning, and the animal that seems to be taken out the most is the koala.
What about, Scott, the koala that's there with you? We saw at the top of the show there. I've forgotten her name now.
Rosie.
Rosie.
Yeah.
Is she still there?
Rosie.
Is that her? I can see the leaves kind of rustling behind you.
Well,
is that her now?
She is a cheeky little scamp. She is running around at the moment. She's just about to climb the tripod of the cameraman, which is nice to see. She is one of the lucky ones. She actually was rescued as a joey, that's a young koala, and then was brought into a sanctuary where she was actually then looked after as a baby. The reason that she's so friendly is because she has been looked after as a baby. My poor cameraman is grimacing now because she's actually decided to grab hold of his leg, leaving a few little marks, shall we say, in his leg. Oh. But what I might actually do is... oh, there she is. She is such a cheeky little one, this one. But the reason we can't actually film with some of the burns victims is because they are so stressed. Today I've been working with them and seeing the shock in their eyes, to see the sadness and to just appreciate the trauma that these animals have been through is just so upsetting. At 7 years old, I decided that I wanted to be a vet, and I became a vet because of my love of Indigenous Australian animals. So I'm so grateful that I can be here amongst my countrymen and women who are doing incredible work to rescue and rehabilitate these creatures. But it will take a very long time. We're looking not just at a few days where these burns are being treated, but then we have to remember that the habitat is gone. So some of them also, because of the burns and they contract, that means they're unable to climb trees. And some animals also are actually losing their nails. And when they lose their nails, they can't climb the tree effectively to be able to breed and to be able to eat. So it does then mean that they need to find permanent homes. And at the moment, there isn't any forest that's safe to release them into.
So what will happen to them then, Scott, when they will stay in animal centres or, you know, thinking the worst, would any of them have to be put down? Or some of them, their injuries just too bad that they would never be able to be released?
Well, Ruth, unfortunately, that's happening up and down the country, not only with farm animals as well, which have been absolutely decimated, but there are groups of vets going out in helicopters at the moment, euthanasing many creatures who just simply have too many burns to survive. It's obviously incredibly painful to be burnt. These animals are coming in incredibly dehydrated, incredibly shocked, and also we have to remember they are wild creatures. The ones around us at the moment, they have been habituated to humans because they were joeys and they've learnt to like humans, but most of them want to just live at the top of a tree. But these animals, if they're kept in captivity for too long, they can get stressed, then they don't eat, and then they can also be in dire circumstances. But I'd like to actually introduce an incredible volunteer. There is thousands of volunteers giving up their time, working day and night to look after these animals. And this is the wonderful Barb, who is looking after little Zanani here. Now, tell us why you have such an intimate relationship with her.
Zanani came to us 7 years ago. She was actually burnt in a bushfire. She was only a tiny baby. So I reared her at home for 7 months until she was well enough to come into the hospital. Unfortunately, she had claw damage. The nail beds were burnt in the fire and it's damaged the beds, and so the claws haven't regrown. Yeah. So we've had to keep her.
Ooh, I don't know if you can see just here, but actually she's lost a couple of the nails, and that's the real reason why she can't be released. And you can also understand the longevity of this care. This is an animal that was burnt 7 years ago, but the bushfires, we expect bushfires in Australia, but not to the extent that we've seen these current ones. And also, Barb, what's the kind of response that you've seen from people not only in Australia but also around the world?
Yeah. The response has just been overwhelming. We've just been flooded with medical supplies, food, money, of course. People have been donating money. We've got the adoption program for koalas. So many people right around the world now are adopting our koalas. That helps us, you know, keep the hospital going.
Well, there you go, the wonderful, and she's going to kill me now, for 80-year-old Barb, who is working to look after these animals. Please, everyone, continue to help the crisis effort by donating whatever you can. But this is an animal that desperately needs saving.
Thank you, Scott. It is, and thank you, Barb, and all the amazing volunteers that do that kind of work. It's so heartbreaking, absolutely.